The mystery of Eric Fleming has been answered, and it's not good. Ed Hetty Jr. was born Eric Fleming on July 4, 1925, in Santa Paula, California. His early years were not easy at all. He was born into a chaotic and abusive home and went through terrible things that left him with physical and mental scars that will never go away. His father was said to be violently abusive, and when he was only 8, Edward tried to run away from his painful home life. He ended up on the streets of Los Angeles, where he lived as a nomad and took care of himself in the worst parts of the city. To make money, he did any job he could find, like working in local markets and cleaning shoes. His problems didn't go away when he was a teenager, and they led him down a dark road. Later, he got into trouble with the law because he was connected with a gang. A terrible accident involving a gun left the victim with a serious facial injury that needed multiple surgeries to fix. In the future, Fleming said that this was a turning point in his life. He started to rethink the way his life was going after having surgery to reconstruct his face. At one point, the surgery failed, leaving him temporarily disfigured. Through this painful time, he changed as a person, which gave him the drive to start a new, better road. Fleming joined the U.S. Navy during World War II because he wanted to be disciplined and have a sense of purpose. He did a great job and was sent to the South Pacific as a petty officer. During his time in the Navy, he learned values like toughness, honor, and friendship that would later show up in his most famous parts. After being released from the Army with honor, he came back to the United States determined to improve his art and mind. At first, Fleming worked as a worker at Paramount Studios. Casting agents noticed him because he looked tough and was very serious. He started taking acting classes and eventually worked with well-known teachers who helped him get better. In the 1950s, Fleming started getting small parts in movies and TV shows, such as in Bonanza, The Silent Service, and Studio One. Even though these roles weren't very big, they set the stage for what would be a big break. When Eric Fleming played Gil Favor on the CBS show Rawhide from 1959 to 1965, it was the high point of his career. Fleming brought weight, depth, and quiet authority to the screen as the tough, moral trail boss. People loved how real he was, how strong he was, and how emotionally complex he made the part. He quickly became a household name. Rawhide was one of the most popular westerns of its time thanks to Fleming's steady direction. The show not only captured the spirit of the Old West's frontier, but it also dealt with moral and social problems that fans could relate to. Fleming's performance set the tone for the whole series and was a big part of how young Clint Eastwood's career began when he played the brash young cowboy Rowdy Yates. Their chemistry on screen, which was a good mix of Fleming's power and Eastwood's immaturity, made for an exciting watch. A lot of changes happened behind the scenes of the long-running CBS Western show Rawhide during the summer break of 1965. New executive producer Ben Brady made a big choice that would have long-lasting effects. He wanted to change the show's format and try to get more people to watch it again, but the number of viewers was going down. Brady was the sixth producer to take over Rawhide during its time on TV. He was given the difficult job of bringing a once popular show that was showing signs of fatigue in both story and ratings back to life. Because Brady thought that a big change in the cast would give the show new energy and direction, he fired a number of longtime and popular cast members. One of them was Eric Fleming, who played Gil Favor, the tough and stern boss on the trail who has been a major character in the show since it began in 1959. Along with Fleming, a number of other regulars who had become fans' favorites over the years were also fired without any good reason. Sheb Wooley, who was cast as Trail Scout Pete Nolan and was known for his rough charm, was one of those who were turned down, even though his character had been important for a long time as the experienced guide and often the wise voice on the drive. James Murdoch, who played Mushy, the camp cook's helpful but often clumsy helper, was also let go. People liked his character because he was loyal to Wishbone, the crusty trail cook played by Paul Bringar. Wishbone was a source of comic relief and human weakness. Robert Cabal, who played the quiet but reliable wrangler Hey Jesus, was also kicked off the show. At the time, Jesus was one of the few Latino characters who appeared regularly in a big TV western. His presence added a bit of cultural diversity to an otherwise uniform cast. Last but not least, Rocky Shahan was taken off the show. He played the quiet but loyal Dvir Joe Scarlett. Shahan's character wasn't always at the center of the story, but he was always on the trail crew and helped the show feel like a stable group of friends. The firing of Eric Fleming may have been the most shocking of all of them. Gil Favor, played by Fleming, was the show's main character and de facto leader of the cattle runs. His performance was a big part of the show's early success. Rawhide's strict but moral leadership, which was often broken up by times of personal thought and making moral choices, gave the show a realistic feel that viewers liked. Fleming was not only a great character, but he also helped give the show a lot of emotional weight. Fans and people in the business world were both shocked when he was fired all of a sudden. Fleming later talked about his firing in an interview with TV Guide. He said, "CBS fired me because they were paying me $1 million a year." This was a harsh and somewhat defiant response. The real number was closer to $220,000 a year, which was a lot of money for a TV star at the time. It was clear from what he said that network economics and artistic direction are at odds with each other. It also seemed like there was some anger about the choice. He had been a regular and noticeable part of the show for 7 seasons, which may have made things worse. After Fleming left, the producers made the controversial choice to raise Clint Eastwood to trail boss. At the time, Eastwood played the younger, more impulsive Dvir Rowdy Yates. This change in how the characters interacted was a big turning point in the story. However, Eastwood was said to be on the fence about the change. In later interviews, he would say that he didn't feel comfortable taking on the major role, especially since things were going so badly and his friend and co-star Fleming had to leave so quickly. Eastwood knew that one of the things that made Rawhide interesting was the strong mentor-mentee relationship between Favor and Yates. He also knew that without Fleming's steady presence, that important dramatic tension would be lost. Still, Eastwood took on the job with skill and led the trail crew through an 8th season that was cut short to just 13 episodes. No matter how hard these changes were made to bring new life to the show, they did not have the desired effect. Ratings for Rawhide kept going down, and by the end of 1965, CBS was no longer sure that the show would be successful in the long run. The last hit came from William S. Paley, who was the head of CBS and decided to end the show before the last few episodes of the season even aired. Eastwood says that a mistake in strategy on the part of the network was another thing that led to the end of the show. He said that Rawhide had been CBS's only regularly successful show that aired on Friday nights, which are notoriously bad times for viewing. In order to make the most of the show's relative strength, CBS officials moved it to Tuesday nights. Unfortunately, this put Rawhide up against Combat on ABC, a dark World War II thriller with Rick Jason and Vic Mororo as the leads. The show, which was about a platoon of American soldiers fighting on the Western Front, had a similar audience, mostly male fans who liked stories about leadership, action, and hardship. This choice about when to air the show split the audience, which sped up Rawhide's decline in the end. After having a string of problems with his career, Eric Fleming showed he was strong and flexible by getting a supporting part in The Glass Bottom Boat, 1966, a romantic spy comedy that was a big hit with Doris Day as America's sweetheart. In the movie, Fleming played a cool, dashing spy who gets caught up in a mess of funny mistakes and spying antics from the Cold War. He stood out among a cast of experienced comedic actors with his sophisticated presence and sharp performance. He added a layer of charm and mystery that balanced Day's bubbly charm and the film's screwball energy. Even though Fleming wasn't the star, his performance showed that he could do more than just westerns, which had been his public image up until that point. At the same time, Fleming made a big comeback to TV by guest starring in 3 episodes of NBC's Bonanza, which at the time was the most famous and widely watched show on TV. Set in the Wild West of Nevada, Bonanza was about the Cartwright family, led by patriarch Ben and his 3 boys, including Michael Landon's impulsive and beloved little Joe. Fleming's special roles not only brought him back to some of the Western storytelling styles he had learned on Rawhide, but they also showed off his ability to play complicated and often morally ambiguous characters in a way that was appropriate for the whole family. The action director William Whitney, who was in charge of him, was known for his fast-paced, powerful style, which made Fleming's performances even more intense. One of Fleming's most powerful roles was in the 18th episode of Bonanza's 7th season, called Peace Officer. He played Wes Dunn, a cruel police officer, in a way that was both scary and complex. Dunn's concern with control and justice turns into a story about how power can be abused. It was Fleming's performance, which showed Dunn's rise to authoritarian cruelty, that got praise from both reviewers and fans for how psychologically complex it was. His ability to make even the meanest characters seem like real people showed how deep he was as an actor and how willing he was to go into dark emotional ground. David Dorter, the creator and executive producer of Bonanza, saw how captivating Fleming was on screen and how well he got along with the rest of the group and asked him to come back the next season to play a bigger part. In this episode, Fleming played Haber Clausen, a strict and religious Mormon rancher, in the two-part show The Pursued. It was a first for its time because it went into the sensitive and rarely talked about topic of religious oppression in the American West in such depth. The story was about Clausen and his family trying to live a quiet life based on their faith, but they were met with suspicion, bias, and eventually violence from settlers in the area. The character was written by Fleming with quiet dignity, compassion, and strength. He painted a picture of a man whose beliefs are tested by hardship but stay firm. Fans of old TV shows and people who study the history of entertainment have been haunted by the sad and mysterious death of actor Eric Fleming for decades. In the early 1960s, Fleming was very famous. He was best known for playing the famous trail boss Gil Favor on the hit Western show Rawhide. But in a horrible and strange way, his life was cut short in 1966 while he was shooting a TV movie in a remote part of Peru. After years of guesswork, different news stories, and mostly quiet about what happened, the whole story of his death is finally out in the open. And it's a lot scarier than most fans thought it would be. Eric Fleming went to the Jalaga River in Peru to film High Jungle, a pilot for a two-part TV movie for ABC that was meant to help him get more exciting and exotic parts in his career. On September 28, 1966, tragedy struck while he was filming a scene with Nico Menardos in a boat. There were a lot of vague and confused reports at the time. It was said that Fleming fell into the river during a practice or take and was carried away by the strong water. Even though a lot of people looked for him, his body wasn't found for several days. And when it was, the state of his body raised some troubling questions. For many years, everyone thought he drowned. A simple but sad accident that happened in a dangerous place. But many people working on the show thought there was more to the story behind the scenes. Some people said that the crew wasn't taking enough safety steps, wasn't planning well, and even had disagreements with each other. These doubts were made stronger by the fact that the Peruvian government didn't do a full investigation, the news barely talked about it, and they seemed eager to end the case quickly. Now that production notes that were recently found, interviews with crew members who are still alive, and declassified diplomatic communications between the U.S. Embassy and Peruvian officials have given us a fuller and more disturbing picture of Fleming's last hours. First, it's now proven that the filmmakers did not have the right safety gear for the canoe scenes, even though locals had told them about the risks of the river. Filming without life jackets, and the canoe they were using was deemed unstable and not right for the speed of the river. Also, Fleming was said to have been worried about the scene just a few days before he died. He told another cast member that he didn't feel safe and wasn't sure what to do because the river was moving so quickly. But because of a tight budget and the need to stay on plan, the production moved quickly and without thinking. Worse yet, pictures taken right before the accident show that the stunt planner wasn't properly overseeing the scene, and the director insisted on filming the canoe going through the rapids more than once to get the proper angle. Fleming was allegedly sick, tired, and dehydrated from being in the jungle, which is a dangerous state for anyone to be in when the conditions are so hard on the body. Menardos was able to swim to land when the canoe flipped over. But Fleming was pulled under the waves. According to secret cables sent by the U.S. consulate in Lima, Fleming's body, which was found days later, had serious injuries, including head injuries that couldn't have been caused by drowning alone. It is now thought that he was hit by underwater rocks with a lot of force, killing him instantly in a way that could have been avoided if safety measures had been taken. The speed with which the more troubling parts of the tragedy were tried to hide may be the most shocking thing that was found out. ABC and the makers of High Jungle pushed the story that the person drowned by accident and played down any claims of liability or negligence. Together with local officials, they worked quickly to call the event a natural disaster and kept specifics from the press. ABC ended the project internally, put the footage away quietly, and didn't talk about what went wrong with the public. Members of the crew were told not to talk to the reporters. Menardos was deeply devastated and only said vague things in the years that followed, which made Fleming's death even more mysterious and hard to understand. 3 days after the accident, on October 1st, his body was finally found by the water. The news shocked everyone in the entertainment business and broke the hearts of his family and friends. Fleming died when he was only 41 years old. He was engaged to Lynn Garber at the time and hoped to marry her. She and many others were deeply saddened by his sudden death, and his fans and co-workers both felt the loss very deeply. The making of High Jungle stopped all of a sudden after Fleming's death. MGM chose not to finish or release the episode because it didn't have its main actor and out of respect for the tragedy. It is still a lost project that is mostly remembered for being linked to Fleming's untimely death rather than for its artistic goals. The event was a sad and sudden end to the career of an actor who had been through a lot in his early life, including a hard youth and serious injuries, but had managed to become successful in Hollywood. His death was a tragedy for the entertainment industry and a painful reminder of the risks artists often take to tell stories, especially back when online filming didn't have the safety standards it does now. The new information shows not only a terrible accident, but also a sad story of professional negligence, business indifference, and a systemic failure to keep a beloved actor from a clearly avoidable death. Fans will always remember him as the calm and honorable Gil Favor, but this more in-depth look at his last moments puts a sad shadow over his legacy. For a long time, silence and half-truths hid the secret. It has now been solved. But its conclusion doesn't give me much hope. This story is meant to teach us about the real risks that can be found behind the camera and the hidden costs of fame.